Okay, we are finally live here. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And my apologies for the technical problem, which was somewhere in cyberspace, but we got it sorted out. So, thank you for your patience and hanging with us here. And I'm really excited on this very special edition of the Packard Network Live to have a very special person with me. And we're going to talk about three important topics. And when this hit the airwaves last week, what we were going to be talking about, the response was amazing. So we're going to be discussing how to deal with drama in the workplace. We've all experienced it. Yours truly has had his fair share of that over 30 years in 30 countries. So we're going to talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk about the topic of how to deal with conflict. And my special guest, her trademark is how to kick conflict to the curb. So we're going to get into all of that. And then finally, we're going to touch on how to move forward with those difficult conversations that we all have to have, not only as a leader, but also as even an individual contributor. If something's not right, how do you have that difficult conversation with your colleague or your manager? So we're going to talk about some of that stuff as well. But I'd like to welcome my special guest, who's an expert on these topics, Joyce Weiss. Joyce, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great to have you here on a Monday afternoon on the East Coast of the U.S. and in the evening in Europe. So for those of you that are watching live, please do let us know where you're tuning in from, and feel free to, no question is barred, so feel free to tee up anything that you'd like to know about related to these topics or related to the two people that you see on your screen. We'll be sure to answer you. If we don't give you an answer during our limited time today of roughly an hour, we'll make sure that we do respond to you in due course later today or by tomorrow. And for those of you finally that are watching on replay, please feel free to tee up any question as though you were watching live. I know that most of my network it's very Asia heavy. And so for those of you watching it on replay, I know there'll be hundreds of you. Please do tee up any questions in the comments as you're watching the replay around this as well, and we'll be happy to get you a response. So I'll take just a moment to introduce Joyce, and then we'll get right into the conversation. Joyce is a communication coach and queen of conflict resolution. She knows how to resolve the disputes and the conflict to yield a positive outcome for parties. And that's very much an art. It's not a science. Maybe parts of it are science, but it really comes through a lot of experience. And very similar to elite performance and the work that I do, the experience and your intuition really goes a long way. So an expert like Joyce on her topics, an expert like myself on my topics, we can actually save you, the listener, a lot of time with challenges that you might be dealing with. So that's a big reason why Joyce is here. She's an expert at teaching others how to keep their cool. We all know that on these topics, the emotions can tend to creep into the picture and take the center stage. And that's something that you actually want to stay away from if you're going to manage this effectively. And Joyce has a master's degree in guidance and counseling from Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. She's coming to us live from North America in the state of Michigan today, actually. And she's also been selected as the official World of Business and Executive Coach Summit Curator in conflict resolution. She's authored 3 books. These are 3 books you must get. You must read these books as well. I enjoyed every word of them myself. One is Take the Ride of Your Life. The second is Full Speed Ahead. And the third is Kick Conflict to the Curb, which is a core topic that we're going to be juggling and wrestling with today. She's also been awarded the international designation as a certified speaking professional. Yes, she is a professional speaker. I'm sure that you'll see that come out in the conversation that we're having today. The National Speakers Association has given her this award, as well as the International Federation for Professionals. And she hosts a live broadcast show herself. I've been honored to be on that program before. It's called Kick Conflict to the Curb. So she'll tell us all about that later on in the program. And Joyce, I'm going to take a sip of water here, and if I left out anything, please feel free to insert it right now.
Are you kidding? You did it. You did it all plus. Thank you. That was smooth.
Great. Well, it's great to have you on the program. And Joyce, tell us maybe for a moment about when you were, let's say, exiting high school. Okay. Did you ever imagine, was your ambition to be doing what you're doing today? And if so, great. And if not, what changed?
Well, it ended up being that most of my friends always came to me, even back then in high school, as their coach. They didn't call it a coach, but Joyce, you're our go-to person. This is happening with my boyfriend, or Susie and I got in a fight. What should we do? So I always had that thing about not just helping people, but figuring out what kind of solutions would come from these. What are some of the results? Now, I did get my bachelor's in education. So I was a school teacher in Detroit, and I wasn't a coach then. I taught for a few years, then I stayed home because that's what we did back then to help raise the kids with my husband. Then I needed more, Brett. I didn't want to just be home. And I took an assessment, and it said counseling. So I looked into it, and I ended up going to get my degree in guidance and counseling, and did that for a few years, and then became a keynote speaker for 25 years. I love
25 years. 25 years.
years.
A keynote speaker. So where was this, and what kind of audiences did you have for 25 years, quarter century, a keynote speaker? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I traveled all over. Whether it was Hawaii, whether it was the Cayman Islands in the middle of Hurricane Gilbert, that's another story. I just loved preparing and engaging people, and mainly supporting them to make a difference. So I did this, then COVID hits, and I knew I had to do something else because all of the speaking engagements were canceled, right?
All dried up overnight.
All dried up.
Yep.
And then at the same time, it's just amazing how things like this happen if your eyes are open. I was getting tired, Brett. I was tired of the traveling. I was tired of preparing. It's like preparing for a wedding, all the slides or the PowerPoint. And when COVID hit, it just happened that I said, I started out as a counselor, full circle. Now I'm a coach, and I am so in love with what I'm doing because of the people who I meet, and all that good stuff. But to long answer, the ones won't be as long, I promise. But we started out with, did I always want to be a coach? I had that natural ability. And then, the speaking was wonderful. I'm not discounting that. This, though, it's meatier. It's not just making people feel good and, gee, I'm going to learn one thing and do it. Are you really going to? So this is a lot deeper.
That's fantastic. Well, what a journey and fascinating. I'm sure you've got probably have to do this a different day on a different topic, but I'm sure that you have a lot of stories to tell about some of your engagements over those 25 years. That's a long time to be to be doing that. And I can see why you've achieved and received the awards for doing it that way, the professional that you are. Just a quick second here. I'd like to take just a moment to welcome Kaisha from the United Kingdom. We have Omar here from Arizona. Thank you for tuning in live. We have Eunice from Nigeria. Eunice, thank you so much. Means a lot to me to have you tune in from Nigeria, West Africa. We have Nigel Kilpatrick from Poole over in the UK as well. So far the UK is the dominant part of our audience here, and I'm not surprised with that given my network. But great to have you all here, and please tee up any questions that you might have for Joyce and I. Joyce, let's get right into the topic. We're going to really talk about three things. One is drama, second's conflict, and the third is how to have those difficult conversations. And I would really like to have the viewers be able to take a couple of things away from each topic. Sure. And so let's kind of start with drama. We've all dealt with it. Some people like to keep their head down and avoid it. Other people like to start it up and stir the pot. And you have the type of people that do the work, and there's so much drama involved in them doing the work. And you have other people that do the work, keep their nose down, and there's no drama. And then you have people that don't do any work and create a lot of drama. So I think everybody knows that there's drama in one form or another, but how do you, let me just start with a simple question that how do you, if you're in the work environment, how do you kind of stay neutral and avoid getting wrapped up into drama?
Love the question. It's an impossible. Meaning the answer is the drama is there. My son always says to me, Mom, you just look for conflict, because I look for it because I happen to be one that it's there, and it's like a personal challenge. How am I going to not create it? Well, I do that too, I'm sure. But the drama is there for all of us. We have to make a choice, Brett. Are we going to get pulled into it? And we're human beings. When we pinch ourselves, ouch, it hurts. Well, we're all human. We get pulled into it. But it's the time when it's taking over that you've got to make a decision. How can I back away from it? If you're an HR professional, because a lot of my clients are human resource professionals or leaders, you got to make a decision. What can you do to help to coach the people who are making the drama so that they can stop it? And most importantly, how do you coach the people who are bringing the drama to you as a leader so you can wash your hands away from it and say, hey, it's your problem. Let's experiment a couple things of what you can say to this person. The goal is to let other people take care of their own drama.
Right. So how do you, what would be your advice to somebody on how to, like with anything, you get whistleblowers that are just falsely blowing the whistle. Maybe there's really not drama. And you've got, I'm sure you've dealt with those people as well. And they're just kind of blowing the whistle, accusing somebody of drama. How do you, as a leader, let's start with the leader's perspective, address the drama when it's first, let's say it's reported to you by an employee. What are the steps that you take in kind of sequential order? Yeah.
Love it. First of all, I'm the leader. I want to make sure this person feels heard. Even though internally you may be saying, oh my God, here we go again. That's all he does, or it's all she does is the whistleblower and complain about someone. It helps if you make the person feel heard. For example, I can see why you'd be upset if I were in your shoes. Now, if you were me, how would you handle you? If you came and kept on talking about something, what would you do? So this automatically will, that's the second thing you're going to help that person feel heard. And then you're going to take it off of you and you're going to throw it back at them, because it's really, that's the answer. They can't depend on you, leader. If you're always the ones rescuing these people, they're never going to take ownership of it. So that's the first thing I would do. I would make sure this person feels heard. I hear you. I understand. It's got to be tough. What would you do if you were me? What advice would I give you? It's probably one of the first things I would do.
Yeah, and I think a typical response might be, in some cases, depending on the maturity level, might be, I don't know what to do. I just want to do my job. So what are your ideas?
I don't know what to do. Then I would say, okay, I can see why you don't know what to do. You don't want to do your job. You're coming to me complaining about Sue. And again, I understand the complaints. Then what do you have to do? What conversation do you have to have with Sue? If you just want to do your job, Tom, and Sue is the one that is driving you nuts, and she's not allowing you to do your job because you are putting up, because she's so annoying, then what can you do to stop Sue's behavior? Or how can you pull back and figure out what you can do, Tom, so that Sue is not a problem for you? It's all changed. You talked about this with me on my show, Brett. It's all about that mindset, and not just putting up a sticky and say, I'm going to talk to Sue. I'm going to be great. But what specifically will you do? What can you say to her? Or what are you going to tell yourself, saying, wait, in the scheme of things, I'm just going to let it go. My job is important. That's it.
Yep. Is ignoring drama a way to solve drama?
No, because it's there.
Right.
You don't have to definitely don't get sucked into it, but it's like the elephant in the room. I find when people don't have the communication skills, they will ignore it. And many times they're leaders, Brett. I don't know how to break it to everybody watching this, either in the replay or live. Many times the leaders don't have the skills to stop the drama. They just let it go on and on and on. That it's the elephant in the room. You got to deal with it. How you deal with it, there are many different choices, but no, don't let it just go on.
Yeah, I mean, it will go on. And I think Joyce and I would like to be able to tell all of you watching this that there are some things a leader can do to prevent it. And, maybe there'll be periods where there's no drama, but for the most part, there's always going to be the drama, the politics, whatever you want to call it there, that people are, for different motivations, creating this drama, which can be a distraction. And again, people do get fed up with this. And so Joyce, what happens if they go back and they do confront the person with it? They confront Sue about it, and Sue just continues to create the drama.
Well,
then what do you do if you're the leader? Yeah.
At least Tom went, had the conversation with Sue, was not accepted. Nothing changed. So the leader has two choices: either get Tom some coaching, either from the leader or from a coach, and how specifically to learn how to have those tough conversations. So if I were the leader and I don't want to spend the money on a coach, which is too bad, because that everyone can, learn from that, is in practice with Tom. How did it go? If we rewound the situation, what would you do differently? So as a leader, you could still talk to Tom. How did it go? What would you change?
Right.
And another idea is to bring, even though this is always last on my list, but to bring Tom and Sue with you to go over the situation. If you feel that Tom really went back and tried and Sue was just impossible. But that's when, instead of you going right to Sue, this is tough, folks. But
It
it's
is tough.
more important for me to get the three together so you could see the dynamics between between Tom and Sue. And then
Right.
you as a leader can pick up on that and give your expertise on that.
Yeah, I mean, there can be, and I can tell you that the first decile performers, the elite performers, the people that I work with, what when they number one, they don't create trauma. Number two, when trauma happens, they address it. They never need to go to the. So Tom, in this case, would just address it, and the people would probably leave Tom alone, right? And if the leader, however, if Sue is getting in the way of Tom's performance, then you've got a whole new ball game. If Sue continues to interfere that way, and the leader in that particular case had better do something. And I think you've just suggested what they could do. They could have a three-way meeting basically. And address it, because if that leader doesn't act, and you're talking about an elite performer, that this drama is interfering with their ability to do their job, earn their bonus, and deliver for the team, then if you don't do anything, that elite performer will be gone.
Absolutely.
And they'll be gone in a New York second, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that a lot of leaders don't take a look when people leave and go deep. Oh, they got another job because they're going to make more money. They're going to have a better job title. They're going to learn whatever the benefits are better. It's usually I wasn't heard, or the leader was too weak and didn't take care of this. Too much drama. I want to find someplace else. Sad, because this elite performer loved the job, but the drama was too much. So that leader better take a good hard look. Did I help? Did I help keep this person? Did I ask the questions? Please tell me what I can do to keep you here. Please tell me what we need to do.
You're spot on. And this is exactly, you have nailed, Joyce, the reason why the best people always work for the best companies with the best leaders.
Yes.
And the C players will surround themselves with other C players. So at the end of the day, if you're a leader and you're tolerating drama, okay, regardless of what you do to address that drama, or your team does, you better be careful, or you might just have a C team or the junior varsity team working for you, and your job will be next because you're not going to perform, right?
Yes. Well, let me tell you. Oh no, finish. I'm sorry.
No, that's I'm finished with that point. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I thought you took a breath, so I didn't. I said I didn't want to interrupt my wonderful host here. So let me give you a case scenario that happened a few years ago. I was called in to work with an entire fire department here in Michigan. And why was I called in? Because the leader, the chief of the fire department, hired me because he heard that I could handle bullies. And there were a lot of his employees who were bullies, and he knew he didn't know how to take care of it. He knew that he needed outside help. So I interviewed a lot of the bullies, because I said, throw me to them, and found out that I could talk to them. So we decided that the chief and I created the training, and it was all about how to return to the basics. If you're a bully, you may not even realize you're a bully. I know, Brett, you may say, oh, yes, they do. Some really don't, because people have never gone up to them and said, that behavior, do you know how dangerous it is? People are afraid of the bully. So we had this great training for a week. First day, there was this guy, Rick. He raises his hand. And he said, Joyce, you seem like a nice lady. I said to myself, oh, here we go. Something's coming. But this stuff isn't going to work. So I said, tell me more.
Mhm.
And he said, we deal with homeless people. We deal with people who are on drugs. These communication strategies, they seem great. They're not going to work on the streets. So this is what I teach. And I'm so glad I stopped and I said, I actually did say in true authenticity, Joyce, how in the world are you going to handle that? Got all these people. I've got them in the palm of my hand for the first few minutes. And I said, Rick, you're right. I stopped for a second. It's not going to work on the streets. We'll talk about that and then the next communication. These strategies are going to work in your office because I hear there are a lot of bullies here. Well, do you know what happened to Rick? Rick pulled back and he said, Joyce, thank you for setting me straight. You're right. That eased us then into talking about the bullies. And the bullies were right in that room. And I said, that's when the elephant got out of the room because I said, there are bullies here. And I said, you're right, Rick. You're right is a very powerful tool, Brett. That doesn't mean that you agree with the person. That doesn't mean that you're going to lie down and just let that person walk over you. You're saying you're right. Then you go into, like I did, let me tell you when it's going to work. Does this make sense to you?
It does. Yeah. There's a good takeaway for everybody right there. You're right.
Yes.
And just to kind of captivate, to engage, to connect. And then you've got the attention, right? And then you can get in and do what you're doing as well. So there's a great takeaway, everybody, on that as well. And, I think also that you touched briefly on something. And I happen to know that on your program, I think Wednesday of this week or later in the week, you have a guest that is a specialist in unconscious bias, Sejal Thacker, who introduced you and I. And I think you're right about some bullies, not all bullies. Some bullies might be doing something because they have certain unconscious biases. And so they're doing something that's rubbing people the wrong way, not even knowing it. Right. And so you've got that type as well. And then you've got the toxic type that know exactly what they're doing and they're just bullying people around. So I think that's a great example. And so the conclusion to the fire department was?
Few of the bullies came to me as their coach because they wanted to, because they knew, they then found out that their goal was not to, because these were good bullies. They're the bad bullies, the bullies that, like you mentioned, they're toxic, they don't care. The chief ended up getting rid of those toxic bullies because he wanted a really good environment, because he had, the first responders, they've got heart. They're just such wonderful people.
Right.
Sometimes you got to be tough. And part of that toughness was that bullying behavior. And the most important thing, so that was the outcome, is that some of the bullies came in, some of the victims, and I am going to say victim, even though when I say victim, there are no victims without volunteers. The people who say to me, I don't know how to deal with them. I just can't take it anymore. I'm just so weak. I'm so stupid. Brett, I don't know how to share this with you, but I have bullies in my life.
Yeah.
Oh. And I've had to figure out, and they're friends. I've had to figure out, I teach this stuff. How am I going to go around this so that they're not bullies? The minute the victims learn how to stand up for themselves, they're no fun anymore for the bullies. They're going to pick someone else. Not that that should be our goal. Hopefully the bully will figure out, I got to change. But I work with a lot of people who don't know that they have the control and the power. And all they have to do is say a few things, get that respect. That's the important thing. Instead of, Here we go.
No,
again.
you're right. Yeah, and I think sometimes Thomas made a comment a few minutes ago that said bullies sometimes they do need to be called out, and sometimes they need to be shown the door on day one, depending on what they do. So I think that, I mean, I have a zero tolerance for bullies with one exception, and that exception would be if they didn't cause harm to somebody and the root cause was an unconscious bias type of at the root of it, then and if that can be trained, fine. But otherwise, if they're conscious about it and they have caused harm, they got to go, and they got to go ASAP. So Thomas, thanks for that. Nigel again from the UK, from Poole, has a question. Joyce, in your experience, do you see that bullies are actually coming from a place of fear themselves?
Oh my gosh, Nigel, is that the person's name? Is that what you just said?
Nigel.
Nigel, love this question. Absolutely. They're really like little babies who are having tantrums, and I'm going to get my way. Either, I mean, we can go on the psychological part. That's a whole nother, show. But nobody in their life has stood up to them. But many times they are fearful. They're jealous of their targets. And this is what targets don't understand. What are they jealous? Why? What do I have? Well, do the leaders like you? Are your communications great? Is your communication great? Are you getting promoted more than the bully? Many times that bully is jealous of you. So you have to figure out how to stop that bully. And how you stop that bully is either, like we were saying before, you can either just say to yourself, it has nothing to do with me. Nigel is right. It's this bully who has that fear, who has that jealousy inside. This, I'm even going to say the word hate against you for what, but it isn't really you. It's all about the bully. So once you realize that, Brett, it's easier and I don't mean victim as a bad, but target, more of the target. As a target, you realize, wait, it's not about me.
Right.
I'm not going to take it personal. Now that takes a long time to get there, though. You don't just say,
but if you're aware of it, like we're talking about now, and you have that perspective, and Nigel, thank you for an excellent question.
Perfect question.
If you have that perspective, the next time this happens to you, having this perspective can enable you to deal with it like a mosquito, right? You just kind of swat it away. And then it's gone, right? So I think that's really important to have that as well. So Nigel, thank you for that. Appreciate that. I'd like to welcome Jasmine from Stockholm, who has joined us as well. Jasmine, thank you. Appreciate your support as well. We've got a heavy showing from Europe. I guess I should say tonight, because it's evening in Europe. That's right. So it's great to have you there as well. So why don't we kind of shift on to the second topic of conflict? And again, if any of you have any questions, excellent questions like Nigel had, or even just any question at all, feel free to tee it up. But conflict, Joyce, conflict is something I have worked with and for people that use conflict to learn about the business, learn about people, learn about their behaviors. I have also worked with and for people that have used conflict to intimidate and to generate short-term results with long-term collateral damage. I have worked with people that hear the word or sense conflict and they run for the door. So I've kind of, in my experience, have dealt with all types and everything. What is your perspective on conflict in the workplace? Because you've got people, for example, why don't we kick this off by asking you, what if somebody just doesn't like conflict and they just can't deal with it? So they just go very quiet when conflict happens. What would your advice be as a coach of that person?
Baby steps.
Okay.
And most of the people who I coach, they don't like conflict, and that's why they come,
Yep.
because they know that it's stopping them. How much is it costing them? And that's what we discuss. How much is it costing them when they don't know how to deal with the conflict? So baby
Right.
steps. And I actually have, it's one of my Weiss communication success plan strategies. It's called
Okay.
How to Make the Conversation Safe. This could be another takeaway, but we'll see how this conversation goes with you, Brett.
Right.
All it is I don't want to, I do want to. So let's say you are the client, Brett, and you don't like conflict. And I know you're cool with it. So it's reality, it's not true.
Yep.
We would practice that. I don't want to, I do want to. We'd figure out, who is it that you need to have a tough conversation with? Oh no, I'm not going to, I don't know how, I don't want to cry. So we, like I said, baby steps. Let's first, why do you want to have this conversation? How is this going to be better in your life if you do? Then the question comes up when they say, yeah, but what happens if it backfires? It could.
Right.
It could
Sure
make
could.
things worse. That's why you have to really think about it. So I'm going to read something. I mean, actually, because this is what happened in a group coaching that I just went through.
Yeah.
It's a small group who they were hired for this company, and they work with all the HR professionals. And for whatever reason, one of the individuals in the group coaching said, my ideas are not listened to. And I'm so upset because it's costing them money. This is what he and I in the group came up with. That they were going to say to one of the HR pros, I don't want to come across as arrogant. I don't want to come across it as arrogant. I do want to protect you and the company. I'm frustrated when I describe the mandatory policies because I don't feel my message is getting through. This may sound like, what's the big deal? But by this guy having that conversation with the HR, one of the HR pros at their work that they're doing coaching with, they finally understood that it's actually another Rick that I have two Rick examples. But Rick actually, he said, Joyce, it worked because I was so frustrated that no one's listened to me. I don't care if they listen to me or don't, but they never do. And my motivation is to help them and to protect them from the laws. So, so this Rick was he didn't like conflict, but this one conversation, and we practice it. It's not that it just happened like that.
Right.
It turned around the whole situation. Then Rick was heard, and they said, wow, you know what? You're right. I never thought of it. You're here to help protect us. So they stopped ignoring him because they realized his motivation.
Right. Gotcha.
You know,
yeah. I mean, what a great real life example of that. How about collaborative problem solving when there's conflict? Have you had experience with that? And do you ever, I know I have, as well. And a lot of times when I've had parts of my various teams over the years that have a conflict that may or may not be related to the way that goals are set. For example, in a matrix organization, you've got geographical profit goals, and then you've got product line goals. And that can obviously create conflict because you've got multiple products to deliver the profit. So everybody in the product area is competing with, for the geography's shelf time, kind of like a supermarket, right? I want my can of soup on your shelf, that type of thing. And that can create a lot of conflicts, but I found it useful to kind of get everybody in the room and collaborate. What's your takeaway on what leaders can do to deploy a collaborative approach to solving conflict?
Love these questions. So here's another real example.
Yes.
Sales group, versus the engineering group.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Two different kinds of personalities, two different
Right.
kind of goals, like you brought up. So,
Right.
so what ended up happening is I had them take an assessment. It's called the conflict dynamic assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And they learned that they had more in common with each other than they thought they did. So let's start with what are the goals that we both want to reach? Then
Right.
from that, okay, it's safer. We've got this. Now let's really get into I want this, you want this, we don't want the same thing. Then because some of the stress and the drama has been removed and they see where they have some similarities, you can then go a lot deeper.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's great. And how about emotional intelligence? Any perspective on how that can be applied, mainly from most of these, if the leaders are equipped with how to solve conflict, then the conflict can, in the ecosystem, it can actually be healthy and create a healthy competition and actually contribute to performance instead of taking away from performance. It's really the distraction and the toxic component that people tend to associate with conflict, but it can also have a healthy side. What's your take on emotional intelligence and how leaders can apply that?
Emotional intelligence is not fluff. It is definitely a soft skill, according to some people.
Yeah.
It is not fluff. There's good conflict and bad conflict, and it helps to have the emotional intelligence to know the difference between the good conflict, meaning like we were talking about with the engineers and the sales. Good conflict, we have a reason why we disagree. We've got different goals. Bad conflict is a word that you've used twice in this in our conversation. The toxic ones. This is where people who usually are dealing with the bad conflict, the bullies or the targets who are the victims, they don't have those skills, the emotional intelligence to move beyond this. Then they stay stuck. So for those people who may be saying, I agree with Joyce and Brett here, but there are a lot of people who they may deal with are the viewers who just don't see the benefit in it. And that is very old school, very old school. Look in the mirror, look in the mirror and figure out what's going on. If your environment, I mean, you deal with elite performers. What about the people who don't and who don't have elite performers? Then they better figure out.
Which is 9 out of 10 people, right, are not elite performers. So, that's the majority. And that's always the leadership challenge is how do you manage this mix of, different performance? And that's always the majority of what you have. Unfortunately, it's just the way that it is, right? So
absolutely. But again, it's up to the leader, and it's okay for the leader to ask for help. Get the group together. What can we? These are some questions that I came up with another group coaching. This could be another takeaway.
Let's hear those. Yes.
Okay. What changes need to be made to make this work? It's not the leader giving the ideas. As the leader is asking, I want your input. And if you're going to tell me that it's me that I need to change, please, leader, ask them in a way to say, I am open to any kind of feedback. You're not going to be fired. There's not going to be retribution. If anything, I'm going to respect you more for having the guts to speak out.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Joyce. Go ahead, please.
What ideas do you have to resolve this? It's the same thing. What do I need to understand about your job that I don't understand? You're not going to say this, but hopefully the employees will say, well, the expectations are not real. I'm not a lazy employee. I'm here to help the company succeed. You're asking me, supervisor, I'm telling you, if we do this instead of this, it's going to work so much better. The expectations have to be real. And that's where you get this conversation. And this is where the leader could say, very true. I got to let you know, I got people breathing on top of me. So I'm tough with you. They're tough with me. Then I'd go back. I'm curious, team. You now know that I have my own stress. So it's not that I want to give it to you. How can we collaborate, work together to make changes here? That's all it is these conversations are so good. You got to do it in a non-judgmental, curious approach.
Right. And these, I think you're touching on just from an even broader perspective. I'll just comment on that. I agree with that. Is that leaders need to have an ecosystem or culture, as most people call it. I call it ecosystem, where conversations happen, and leaders are the best leaders are able to ask questions, not just provide solutions. The people doing the work, the people in the conflict, we're talking about conflict here, are hopefully working towards a common ultimate objective that will benefit, the wider team. Engineers versus sales is the example that you raised. I raised the topic of geography versus product.
Sure.
Whatever those areas of conflict are, the CEO or the leader where that comes together, their job is to ask the right questions, but then allow and empower the different, in your example, engineers and sales to work it out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Leaders have to show their curiosity. It's like you were just saying at the beginning of this. Not I have the answers. Oh, that isn't good. That's old school. If you look at the great cultures, the environments, and I'm going to be talking to Sage Thacker about this tomorrow. Now, effective communication is not what you say, it's what did they hear. Curiosity helps with this. Not, I've got this great idea. I'm curious.
Precisely. Exactly. So have the conversations, empower your teams. If you have to catch fish to feed the village, you better teach your people how to catch fish and not do it for them, because it's not sustainable for you to always just take the attitude. Again, it's old school. If you take the attitude that, if you want a job done, I got to do it myself. That's out of style. That went out with the dinosaurs. And today's leader needs to be able to empower, teach, and support people. I'll give you the fishing pole and I'll show you how to do it once, maybe twice, but then your job is to catch the fish, right? And you let me know what support you need, but you need to do it. I'm empowering you to do it that way. Joyce, I'm mindful of the clock here. Let's get into the final topic here.
Okay.
Difficult conversations. What are your tips for helping people develop the mindset to have that difficult conversation when they've been procrastinating it for a long time?
Oh, and this is a non-judgment zone here with you and me, Brett. It's a risk. If you feel that, I don't like conflict, don't feel bad about that. It's a risk with the minute we open our mouths. It's a risk all the time. Sometimes things are going to go great. And you're going to say, yay, it was worth the risk. Other times things backfire. Like I said before, then that's when we have to decide, what lesson did I learn? How can I move forward? So for the difficult conversations, let's say you have somebody who's, this just happened a couple months ago. A client came to me, her direct report having lots of problems at home. My client didn't want to be a social worker because it would take up all her time, but she has a heart. She didn't want to sound, okay, leave your problems at home, come here. So we practiced and practiced until she finally came up with something like, and this can go with any difficult conversation. I don't want to create stress between us. I do want to have an important conversation. I'm frustrated when I hear all the problems that you share about at home. I want to help you out. The reality, this is getting in the way. This is getting in the way of the productivity of the team. What can we do to help you move on so that you've got the support you need and you're here with us 100%? So that's a very difficult conversation to have. Don't think that I'm saying it's easy. They're all of them, even Joyce Weiss, the queen of conflict resolution. I need to pre-plan those conversations with difficult people.
Absolutely. You do. And that preparation is important. Seeking help is important as well. If you don't know how to do it, you don't have experience doing it, but ignoring it is not the way to do it. Just like we spoke about with drama, if you ignore these difficult conversations, they're always going to be there. It's kind of like the rainstorm that won't go away, right? You keep hoping that the sun will come out, but it just won't do it. And that can be incredibly frustrating. Joyce, we're about to hit the top of the hour. How can people, if they want to hear more from you, learn more from you, get access to all your books, all your great stuff, your tips, your podcast, what's the best way for them to reach out to you, and for what?
So first of all, thank you for asking that question. If they go to Kick Conflict to the Curb, do you think there's a little pattern here? kickconflicttothecurb.com, especially if they're tired of feeling invisible or they've got this bully, there's a free communication assessment that they will take. And then they're going to figure out how their input is recognized, how they no longer dread these difficult conversations. It's a great assessment and it's free. They will get some videos from me and I will send them personalized emails. So that's number one. And number two, reach out at my email, joyce@joyceweiss.com. And if you've got specific questions, or if you even want to go over a conflict, email isn't going to cost you money. So send me. We could be on that, Brett and I are probably on that 24/7 with a little sleep.
Yep.
So
and I know you're incredibly responsive on email. So please do take Joyce up on that offer as well. And LinkedIn, people can obviously connect with you and follow you on LinkedIn.
And that's where you're going to find my shows, the Kick Conflict to the Curb. Every 2 weeks, I invite people like Brett on the show. Oh, and that one fired up. So again, the best thing is to reach out at me, Joyce@joyceweiss.com, and then I can figure out whether you want to be on a list that where an announcement for the new show or questions. I'm a coach. You want to explore coaching for you, for direct reports. It's not going to be a sales call. I'm here to listen, to make sure I'm the right person. It's the right programs. Mainly, you're going to feel better about yourself and feel more confident. And that's really the goal.
That's just fantastic. So please do reach out to Joyce. Joyce, thank you for an hour of your time to be on the program here to share your views around how to deal with drama in the workplace. I feel we did that. How to effectively how to kick conflict to the curb. I'll steal your phrase right there. And lastly, how to really have those difficult conversations. All three of which, by the way, should never be ignored. And that's the key takeaway. So if they're not to be ignored, then there's only one question is, not if you're going to have them, but how you're going to have them. And that's where Joyce can help out. So Joyce, thank you for that wonderful advice as well. I appreciate you being
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, you certainly can.
Because this is important. And you and I talked about this before.
Yes.
So people who are watching this, 20% is insight. Oh, I learned that. That's really cool. I like what Brett said. I like what Joyce said. 80% is mental muscle. It's practice. It's getting coaching. It's continuously reading books on this. Don't think that you're going to make changes after one show. I had to say that because you and I talked about that before. It's very important for everybody watching. It's mental muscle. It's going over and making a change every day.
You've got to practice it, and you've got to practice it. I'll steal a page from my Elite Playbook. You've got to practice without pressure in order to perform under pressure.
Oh.
And Joyce, you said it well. It's that muscle memory that happens, and that's why golf is a huge mental is such a huge part of golf. Yes, there's a physical part, but so is mental about training yourself on how to get that little ball into the hole.
Sure.
And that's so important as well. So practice without pressure and seek coaching and advice as well. Joyce, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. I'd like to thank those of you that have taken the time out of your day, invested time out of your day to watch us and engage with us. And I do hope that you've taken away some important tips on this as well. And I look forward to being back. The Packard Network Live will be back on air from Saudi Arabia this Friday. And I'll have a very special guest. It'll be the evening time over there. So I'll be talking about that, releasing the announcement tomorrow on that. And I look forward to seeing you all again.